Hey everyone, it's Icy. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and safe. This is a continuation video of my intense mono ice playthrough for Pokémon Rejuvenation. If you haven't seen the first video of this run, I'd recommend checking it out. But either way, here is a quick refresher. This run only uses Ice-type Pokémon, or Pokémon that evolve into Ice types. We are playing on Intense mode, of course. We're not using items in battle, but we are playing with the Shift or Switch battle mode. And finally, we are currently on our 4th badge, and we've just defeated Nim outside of Akua Town. I think that covers everything. So, with that, we are now going to move on into Akua Town, so we can hurry along with the story until we finally get kidnapped and taken to Black Steeple Castle. After we push through the story just a little bit more, we'll eventually reach a clearing where we can use our Pokemon and capture new ones. This is actually a huge moment for Mono Ice. We get access to 2 new Pokemon lines, Abomasnow and Swinub. Abomasnow is an excellent hail setter for us, and the first one we get access to unless you grinded up that Shadow Vanilla Ice before purifying it. We also get access to Swinub now. While we won't be able to fully evolve Swinub into a Mamoswine right now, as we can't get back to the mainland to teach it Ancient Power, we can at least get a Piloswine. And it can actually learn Earthquake, because we can wait until Swinub reaches level 37 and learns Earthquake before evolving it. Once all of this is taken care of, we can move back on with the story, and as soon as we spam through the story enough, we will reach another match with Medelis. This is actually our first real battle against her, but all it really takes is an Icicle Crash flinch from my Sneasel against her Cinccino before the rest of my team wipes out hers. Alright. So the fight is actually a little bit more complicated than that. For starters, Cinccino is extremely fast, and with Skill Link combined with Rock Blast, it would wipe out my entire team, if not for Sneasel. Where Sneasel comes in is while it can't one-shot the Cinccino, with the flinch it can actually two-shot it and make short work of it, preventing it from destroying my entire team. Afterwards, I have to make sure to save my Abomasnow for her Sharpedo. And aside from that, Piloswine pitches in quite a bit, which really shows what an amazing addition it is to the team, despite the fact that it's not fully evolved yet. With Medelis taken out, the castle will be sent into complete and utter chaos. Eventually, we will try to ascend to the top of the castle and we'll battle this Emma character along the way. Emma really doesn't count as a serious boss battle, so we're not going to talk about that. There is, however, a lot to say about the Navid battle that comes after that. Despite the fact that we're teamed up with Elita, Navid is actually a serious challenge. I immediately started by throwing in my Abomasnow at the beginning of the battle in order to allow Elita's Blaziken to get in a few hits, but after that I quickly realized that I would have to do most of the work. Piloswine actually put in the most work of all though. It took out 2 of Navid's Pokemon, and it almost took out his Vikavolt. It actually would have taken out his Vikavolt if it had a decent physical Ice Stab move. Unfortunately though, all it has is Ice Shard, but it still almost took it out, which is pretty amazing. Looking back at this battle, I realized if I really wanted to, I could have hunted down Swinub in the clearing and collected like a full team of them. Since the vast majority of Navid's team is weak to ground, a full team of Piloswine would have probably destroyed him. Either way, after that we can let Madam X destroy us with her Yveltal, as I don't think there's a way to prevent that with Mono Ice, and we'll eventually escape the island on the Team Zen ship. After talking with Melia on the ship for a little bit, she'll eventually challenge us to a battle. This battle is a very, very nice reprieve from the battles that we've been taking on so far. Melia's team is pretty balanced, but she does have quite a few weaknesses to the Pokemon on our team. She has multiple ice weaknesses, thankfully, and she even has a couple of ground weaknesses that we can exploit as well. This fight really isn't that big of a deal. I will also mention that I actually forgot to save before taking this battle on, and I was a little bit freaked out, but nothing bad really happened in it. There was some hacks, there was a little bit of a funny moment when her Doublade actually tried to Gyro Ball my Piloswine. But the fields made Gyro Ball gain an electric typing, so it wasn't effective on Piloswine at all. My final comment on this fight is to be very grateful that her Zweilous was not evolved into a Hydreigon, because I think I would have lost otherwise. Once we defeat Melia, we'll make land on Terrajuma Island. Eventually, after a short bit of story, we'll be facing off against Valerie, so that we can collect her badge and use Surf. So this battle seemed pretty easy for me at first. Ahead of time, I actually collected multiple Abomasnows back when we were at Black Steeple. I figured if worst comes to worst, then I could always just 1v1 her with 6 Abomasnows. Not actually how it works though. I ended up beating her with 5 Abomasnows and just Piloswine. Keep in mind that we still can't actually head back to the mainland to access the move tutor. So what would often happen is I would utilize Mist, which Abomasnow knew when I caught it. Using Mist, you would actually set Misty Terrain for a few turns. Benefit of having Misty Terrain up is purely so that I can actually use Earthquake with Piloswine. Earthquake with Piloswine does a ton of damage to Quillfish, knocking it out, and it'll also knock out her Lantern. Without the Misty Terrain, I wouldn't be able to use Earthquake as we're battling on the water's surface. This strategy isn't actually spammable though. It might seem that way, however, the use of Mist also sets a small effect that prevents your Pokemon's stats from being lowered for 5 turns. However, it only sets up the Misty Terrain for 3. Since the effects of Mist actually linger around for 2 turns longer than the Terrain, I can't actually use the move. The move won't work, and since the move won't work, I can't set up the Misty Terrain again. Despite this though, the battle will still fairly easy. Now that we have access to Surf, we can travel through the forest a little bit more until we end up battling Gira. Gira is actually a very close battle, and it's a little bit of an interesting one too. I do actually use Mist again in this fight, not really for the purpose of setting Misty Terrain. However, one of his Pokemon does have a Seed, and the effects of the Seed block my attacks for a turn, so I use that to set up the Mist. Because Gira sets up the Sticky Webs, for those 5 turns the Sticky Webs don't actually matter, which is very beneficial. Aside from that though, Gira is a bit of a struggle. I do appreciate, however, that he has replaced Giratina with Gengar this time. While Gengar is actually a major problem for my team, it's also very frail. And alongside with some priority Ice Shards, the chip from Hail, and a big hit from one of my Abomasnows, we're able to take it out. Clefable is also particularly dangerous, however, I am able to greatly weaken it with my Piloswine's Earthquake before taking it out with another Ice Shard. It probably doesn't help that the Tangulas and Tangros also have very, very low special defense. Aside from that though, when the Rift's Carnivine comes out, I make sure to use Icy Wind to lower its speed since it's very fast. Otherwise, like I said, it's a very, very easy battle. Our next opponent after the Rift Carnivine is going to be Zeta on the Valor Mountain shore. This is going to be the last Zeta battle before the big Z and G. And while it is a little bit tricky to navigate, it's not that difficult. I make good use of using Surf on this field since it is boosted slightly.
But otherwise, the field doesn't play too much into this battle. The real MVP of this battle would probably have to be my Vanillish, though. Zeta's type Null is a very dangerous Pokemon, especially with things like Sword Stance and Flame Charge to boost its speed and its attack. It's also very bulky. However, we received this Vanillite back when it was a Shadow Pokemon, and the move we received it with was Will-O-Wisp. This allows me to burn the type Null, and then using Acid Armor to set up and become bulky so I can take its attacks, I used Vanillish to slowly stall it out, until it became a little bit more reasonable to deal with. The next battle we have to deal with after dealing with Zeta would be the Roar B fight, the final Roar B fight that we have in the current version of the game. This is actually a doubles battle, but it's not too difficult. As with most doubles battles, if I tag team one Pokemon and slowly whittle down his team, eventually it becomes pretty manageable. He does now have a Volcarona on his team, which could be a potentially large threat. However, he mostly attacks with his Volcarona. He doesn't actually take time to set up Quiver Dance. Because of this, I'm easily able to cleave through most of his team, and will embarrass the Disco Dad one more time. With Roar B dealt with, he will disclose the location that Crawley has headed off to. And this means we can now head off to the Sheerden Wetlands ourselves. In the Sheerden Wetlands, we'll find a Zen base, and at the back of the Zen base, we'll find Rin. Here we can take on another milestone battle. Rin is the last battle we have to deal with before we can actually head back to the main island. He's fairly strong, actually. However, after I deal with his Cacturne and his Arcanine, he sends out his Greninja, which could potentially one-shot most of my Pokemon with Grass Knot. However, when he attempted to use Grass Knot on my Sneasel lived, likely due to it not being so heavy, and it also stole his Life Orb as it knocked it out, due to its Pickpocket ability. With the Life Orb, I was actually able to one-shot his Greninja, his Reuniclus, his Scyther, and his Flygon with my Sneasel. Like I mentioned earlier, this is actually a big milestone battle here. After we defeat Rin, we can access Floria Island again. And from there, if we head up to Akuba Town and surf to the right, there's all sorts of new Pokemon that we can finally grab. At our first stop, we can grab Jinx after attempting to help a Zen Grunt woo her. If we give him 20 Sweethearts, he will first challenge us to a battle, which he will lose, and from there we can actually catch the Jinx. Then, on Evergreen Island, we can search in the grass to find Cubchoo. We can also change the time to night there, and find Wandering Snoruns. I actually take the time to catch 2. Make certain that one is female, but I don't really care about the other one. Obviously, one is going to become a Frostlass, and the other one's going to become a Glalie. Although Glalie isn't too good, I figure with its Moody ability, I could potentially cause some havoc later on in the game if I have to. After this, we can exit the forest and enter Evergreen Cave, where we can grab a Bergmite. Also inside the cave where we found Bergmite, we can also melt the ice here. This allows us to continue forward in this cavern, and if we continue down the ladder, we can eventually find our way into the room with the icy rock. If we level up our Eevee around the icy rock, we'll get a Glaceon, and if we level up our Crabrawler, we'll get a Crabominable. After that, we can head into a smaller cave that is a little bit farther south compared to this one. Inside the smaller cave, we can freeze it with Blizzard before breaking it up with Earthquake to find Lapras. Once I've captured all these Pokemon, I head off to Sheerden Village and use the Move Tutor. At the Move Tutor, I can teach Ancient Power to Piloswine, and then level it up once to get a Mamoswine. I also use a Dawnstone on my female Snorunt to evolve it into a Frostlass. Besides that, I also carefully level up the Bergmite to level 43 so that it gains Blizzard before letting it evolve into Avalugg. And finally, I evolve my Cubchoo into Beartic. Okay, we can finally play the game again. Crawley is the first thing on my agenda at this point, so I waste no time in clearing his gym and challenging him. This is another battle where I require a bit of flinch hacking here from Icicle Crash. Using my Slush Rush Beartic to Icicle Crash and flinch his Galvantula on the first turn frees up my Abomasnow to use Mist, setting Misty Terrain. Mist is important, as even when the terrain disappears, I still receive few more turns of being free from having to deal with the sticky webs that Crawley sets with the signature move Barbed Web. Abomasnow's Hail also comes into play, as it gives my Glaceon an opportunity to fire off a Hidden Power Fire and knock out his Zor in one shot. If the rain was up, that wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been possible. In fact, that's something else that's very important here. By having the Mist up when the Scizor comes in, the Scizor's seed does not trigger, which means I can instantly take it out and prevent it from taking out as many members of my team as possible. Anyone who's familiar with Mono Ice runs or playing Mono Ice and competitive knows that Steel types are typically your bane, and that's the case here. Getting rid of that Scizor really helped out a lot. After that, Glaceon fired off a few blizzards while Frostlass took one of his Pokemon down for free with Destiny Bond. And the badge was ours. With the new badge, we'll have a new level cap, which means we can finally evolve our Ice Cream Cone into its final stage. After that, we can head through the Aquamarine Cave, and when we exit, we'll take on the Camper, Alex, and Sam double battle. Once we've taken care of that, and we've made our way into Telly Resort, we can then proceed to run back and forth between Telly Resort, the Aquamarine Cave, and the Ranger Headquarters before taking on a tag battle with Melia against Saki and Vnam. In normal and casual runs, this fight is a joke. It's meant to be. Saki is meant to basically use Explosion and hinder Vnam as much as possible. In Intense, it's a bit trickier. However, after I lose my second Pokemon, I realized I could actually send in Jinx and take advantage of the fact that Psychic is boosted on the glitch field that we're fighting on. To add to this, Vnam is of course a poison type trainer, who is also weak to Psychic type attacks. So with this advantage, I'm able to actually wipe out most of Vnam's Pokemon, and then me and Melia are able to focus on tag teaming Saki. Granted, Saki's team is still very difficult. She does have a Mega Steelix, which I use my Frostlass's Destiny Bond to take down. Even after that though, she has a Metagross, which I got very lucky and I actually froze it with a Blizzard. Once we finish our tag battle, we can push through more story to eventually have a rematch with Medelis. She doesn't use her full team though, and she's battling alongside a Grunt, so we actually make quick work of her. Once we deal with that, we can head on over to Crystalline Town, which is frozen over, and deal with Angie. When we do eventually reach her tower though, the Isle of Angels, she'll first take us to the Tower of Theolia. We'll be given new encounters that we can capture here if we want to, but there's nothing to really mention here. No one's going to use delibird. Besides that though, we can also grab the TM for Frost Breath for basically free. And finally, at the top of the tower, we can face down Angie. The Angie battle is insanely difficult, as is expected. She is technically using the same mono as us, only she has better options. I started the battle by immediately taking out 2 of her Pokemon. My Frostlass sacrificed it for 1, but my Bear Arctic was able to survive with just a sliver of health. That allowed me to swap out my Bear Tick later and use it again. The battle was insanely messy, but Avalugg also put in a ton of work between the wide guard as well as being able to use Mirror Coat on her Glaceon to knock it out later on. It helped so much. Things also helped to finish off the battle. And of course, although Angie herself does not give us a badge, Reese outside does give us a badge, thankfully. With Angie dealt with, we can progress through the story again, and eventually we'll head to the Defrosted Crystalline Museum for a quick battle against Elita. The only really notable things to mention about this battle are how I easily baited her Blaziken's high jump kick, only to switch into my Frostlass and watch it take some easy recoil damage. Granted, Blaziken is a very dangerous Pokemon to go up against for Mono Ice, but between the recoil damage from its high jump kick and the recoil damage it takes from Flare Blitz, as well as the damage from Hail, it's easily knocked out. My Beartic also handles most of her other Pokemon. After that, we can head all the way back to Sheerden Village and Kartos Mountain. There we'll have plenty of puzzles to deal with, and eventually we'll come up against a Primal Groudon. Primal Groudon is easily finished off by sacrificing my Frostlass after it used Destiny Bond. I know some people might think this is kind of cheap, but hey, a win is a win.
With this victory under our belts, we can claim the Magma Stone, and we can head back to Crystalline Town to defrost the TM shop. With the TM from Magma Drift, we could now head into Valor Mountain, if we wanted to. However, I actually need to make some quick detours before we do this first. Except before this happens, I need to make some quick detours. I need to complete 4 help quests. These are the Save a Starly to access the Hidden Library quest, the Hidden Library 1 quest to access the Hidden Library 2, and the Get an Item quest. The Hidden Library 2 gives me the Good Rod, as well as a Water Stone. Although, like I mentioned, we have to complete 2 other side quests to complete this. Get an Item rewards me with an Ice Stone. Realistically, there are 3 stones that you could actually get from this side quest, those being Dusk, Shiny, and Ice. However, since this is a Mono Ice run, I actually debugged the Ice Stone in, since we have no use for the other 2. After this, we can actually head off to Valor Mountain, at long last. Once we head inside and grab the Emotion Powder, we can transform the mountain into its icy state. Inside of the mountain, we can run around to capture Alolan Sandslash and Cryogonal. We can also fish using the Good Rod to capture a Shelter. Afterwards, we can exit Valor Mountain, and we can hatch a Alolan Sandshrew, which we can trade in Crystalline Town for an Alolan Vulpix. After that, we can continue to prepare by evolving our Alolan Vulpix into Alolan Ninetales with the Ice Stone. We can also evolve Shelter into Cloyster with a Water Stone. After that, we can give them some decent moves, such as giving Cloister Shell Smash, and we'll head on back to Valor Mountain. Eventually we'll make our way all the way to the mountaintop and we'll take on the infamous Zeta and Gira battle. This battle is pretty difficult. It starts out okay with me using my Alolan Ninetales to take out Zeta's Minor, but immediately after that he sends in his Typhlosion. This is actually pretty okay with me though. Typhlosion is a major threat on the volcanic field, especially with its eruptions dealing massive damage. On Intense mode, Typhlosion is also crested, which means it does even more damage. My strategy for dealing with the Typhlosion meant using my Avalugg after sacrificing my Abomasnow for a clean switch-in, and using Avalugg I could use Wide Guard to block the eruption, and then I could use Mirror Coat on his Typhlosion after he would switch to using Focus Blast on it. As soon as we eliminate Typhlosion, the battle is mostly ours. I can immediately cool down the field and turn it into a snowy mountain field. This gives me a major advantage as it powers up most of my Ice-type attacks. It also activates Slush Rush. Alolan Sandslash puts in a ton of work, and it helps me clear out Zeta's side of the field, since Zeta has a ton of Pokemon that are weak to Ice. My Alolan Sandslash cleanly knocks out his Dragonite, as well as his Savali, who is using the Ground-type memory, which helps out a lot. And once we take out Zeta, we can double team Gira for an easy win. After we defeat Gira and Zeta, it'll be time for a party. It seems like we can finally relax, but truth be told, this is just another gym battle for us. After we hype up the crowd, we can move on in, and we can battle Amber for our next badge. This battle is an absolute mess, honestly. One, it's on the volcanic top field, and two, she's a fire-type gym leader. I'm using a mono ice team, of course I'm going to have trouble. But it's actually even worse than that. At this point in time, I can't even set up hail on that field, because the hail disappears after one turn. This means I can't use any Pokemon that are using Slush Rush, because there's no point. And in general, most of my attacks are greatly weakened on this field as well. However, I gave it some thought, and I realized that there was a very easy solution. I don't know if I've mentioned the technique that I've been using with my Avalugg recently. Since my Avalugg has Sturdy for an ability, it will always live with 1 HP, as long as it starts at full. And against any special attacker, I can use its Mirror Coat move to basically get a free KO off on them. It's actually how I also defeated the incredibly over-leveled Giratina that we had to fight shortly before Gira and Zeta. Oh yeah, I probably forgot to cover that earlier. Amber's Intense team also has something interesting that you might notice on it. All of her Pokemon have a special attacking move. All of her Pokemon are technically mixed attackers. Even her Infernape, and her Incineroar, and her Arcanine all have Magma Drift as an attacking option, even though the rest of their attacks are all physical. So, I went out and I actually caught myself a bunch of other Bergmites, and I went back to the battle with those. This didn't work out how I liked it to, though, because unfortunately I ended up having to level them up and evolve them. The reason being is most likely that her AI wouldn't use the Magma Drift move unless I evolved them into Avalugg, whose defense would dissuade her Pokemon from using their physical attacks, since they would be so weak. So, using this technique, I could actually knock out 5 of her Pokemon using Avaluggs with Sturdy and Mirror Coat. This left behind her Incineroar. Since Mirror Coat is a Psychic type attack and Incineroar is a Dark type, that strategy won't work. However, I do still have my Frostlass, which is much faster, and it has Destiny Bond, so I can use that to get rid of her Incineroar for a very easy, although a little bit cheesy victory. After we finish the Amber fight, we'll head to the past for the first time. There aren't really any significant battles that take place here in the past right now, so instead we're just going to keep pushing through the story until we end up back in the present again
and we head into West Gieron City. Here in West Gieron City, we'll head into the sewers, and we'll chase down the Rift Garbodor. Typically, boss battles like this with only one Pokemon aren't that interesting right now because I can easily use Frostlass's Destiny Bond, which is what I do for both of the Rift Garbodor battles. After we take down the Rift Garbodor, West Gieron City will open up and we can head towards the power plant to challenge Eric, the stand-in gym leader. But before we can get to him, Amanda will challenge us to a double battle. It's been quite a while since we had a really hard double battle, and Amanda always brings a challenge. She leads with a Sun team. In fact, that's most of her team if we're being honest, but she does lead with a Torkoal, which brings in the Sun. I chose to actually set Hail manually this battle. However, I probably could have also simply sacrificed one of my Hail setters and it would have done the same thing here. Torkoal is actually a very slow Pokemon, slower than even my Abomasnows. The reason this is important is because when it comes to multiple Pokemon having weather abilities hitting the field at the same time, the Pokemon that's slower has their weather come out on top. What makes most of this fight difficult is mainly the fact that I only have really one option for dealing with fire types, which is my Mamoswine. Granted, I do have Pokemon that can learn Surf and can use Surf as coverage. However, for the most part, Mamoswine is my go-to answer for fire types, mainly using its Earthquake. However, in a double battle, that's not something that's really spammable, nor is it something that I really want to use too much. I won't say this battle was too challenging though. For the most part, I didn't really think too much about it, and at some point, I managed to get a Sword Stance up on my Sandslash, and between that and the Hail, it took out a large number of Amanda's Pokemon. After pushing Amanda out of the way, we can move on to Eric. Thankfully, Eric is a pretty simple matchup. I didn't really have to do any planning or anything like that, it just kinda happened. I started off by freezing the Murkwater surface field. Doing this allowed me to use Earthquake on my Mamoswine, which got me a couple of KOs instantly. Granted, I did lose my Alola Ninetales in the process, but it was a 2-for-1. It was pretty okay. Immediately after that, I was able to send in my Sandslash, which took advantage of the fact that the Hail was set. I did make a slight mistake here though. Eventually, when Eric sends out his Ampharos, it Mega Evolves into Mega Ampharos. I actually tried to Mirror Coat his Mega Ampharos with my Avalugg. However, Mega Ampharos's ability is Mold Breaker, which meant my Avalugg Sturdy didn't work. So Mega Ampharos got a free knockout on my Avalugg. But that was fine because my Mamoswine turned out to be faster than the Mega Ampharos anyways, and it knocked it out clean in one shot. With our next gym badge in hand, we can go ahead and board the train to Grand Dream City. However, as you know, nothing is ever simple, and we will end up stranded before we go off to explore. And eventually, in exploring a place called the Darklight Woods, we'll go through a sequence of events where we'll have to take on a ton of Bladestar grunts. Afterwards, we'll be at a point where we have to pretty much choose which gym leader we want to take on next. For this run, I choose the options that lead me to battle Flora instead of Florin, since single battles are much nicer. The battle with Flora is actually fairly easy. There's not a whole lot to worry about, but there are some things that I do need to watch out for. For starters, Grass Whistle is a 95% accuracy sleep move on the field that we're battling on. This is unfortunate, however, I simply soft reset until her Whimsicott misses the move since there is still a 5% chance that it can miss. After that, I one-shot it with a Blizzard, and we continue on the battle like normal. Another problem that I do run into, however, is her Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is very bulky and it's just a problem in general. Although it is a little bit sloppy, I do end up taking it out by using Frostlass's Destiny Bond. The only major threat after that would be her Mega Venusaur, But of course I had my Evolug in the back, which using the combination of Sturdy and Mirror Coat, I was basically able to one-shot it. Part of me didn't actually want to do that, but it wound up being necessary. After that I cleaned up her team, and that was another badge down. Now be able to board the train and head into Grand Dream City at long last. In the middle of all this story, we'll actually be able to battle Vnam at some point. She's a lot stronger than the last time we battled her. However, we do have the opportunity to actually lose this battle and continue onward with the story. However, since I was able to win, I figured I might as well show it off anyways. This battle with Vnam is pretty unique as far as battles with Vnam go. It is a double battle, and if you know anything about me in double battles, you know that they tend to be a little bit sloppy. She also has the Charizard, a Mega Charizard at that. How Vnam managed to bond with Tesla's Charizard so much that she could actually Mega Evolve it into Mega Charizard X, especially after it went berserk on her in the past, is something I don't have the answer to. But it is a problem, and I actually do have to flinch hack it in order to take it out without it taking out half my team. Otherwise, like I said, it's a very sloppy battle. I even end up taking out my own Alolan Ninetales with an Earthquake from my Mamoswine, which was completely unnecessary. But despite all these mishaps, I do still manage to take a win here. After that, the story will progress as usual, and eventually we'll end up in the Nightmare Realm and taking on Zeta for the final time. This battle with Zeta is obviously a lot easier than the battle we had with him on Valor Mountain. For one, he has a team of 5, not really a team of 6, since his last Pokemon is a level 1 Solosis that's meant to represent him. For 2, he doesn't have a Mega Absol in this fight. It's Focus Sashed. He does, however, have the Dragonium Z on his Dragonite, but we never see it. The main threat that I was worried about, however, was his Weavile. Weavile outspeeds pretty much most of my team, and since it was holding the King's Rock, there was the possibility that it could get some really nasty flinches and do some really nasty damage. But for the most part, even though the battle is a little bit sloppy on my side, we can finally put Zeta to rest. While Zeta was quite the pushover, the Puppet Masters actually are not. On Intense Mode, they're incredibly dangerous and very difficult to fight. In fact, the battle was so difficult that I actually had to leave the Nightmare City and head to the Move Relearner in Grand Dream City in order to teach some new moves to my Pokemon to abuse. My Alolan Ninetales actually had a moveset change. I ended up teaching it Hypnosis, as it was perhaps the only Pokemon that I had that could learn it, and I also gave it Hex. On Psychic Terrain, which is what we battle the Puppet Masters on, Hypnosis has 90% accuracy. To add to that, I also let my Ninetales hold a Wide Lens, which I found earlier in the story, which helped even more. The damage Hex does is doubled on Pokemon that have a status condition, but it's also boosted by the Psychic Terrain field, which is weird, but that's actually really beneficial. Using these boosts, I was usually able to put to sleep many of the threats that would normally hurt my team or even threaten to sweep me. Things such as Delphox, Metagross, and even Glade at some point. This doesn't make the battle easy though. The Puppet Master also sets up screens, which makes the battle take a lot longer than it probably should, and there's also annoyances such as its Xatu, which Thunder Waves my Pokemon and makes it a little bit slower as well. Elita also assists quite a bit. Her Hawlucha is easily able to one-shot the Mega Medicham, which helps out tremendously. Overall, this was actually a pretty hard-fought victory.
this point, we now have 11 gym badges, and this will conclude the second leg of our journey on the Mono Ice Intense run. I really hope everybody that's been following along has been enjoying the ride. It's been quite a wild one. Originally, when I started these videos, I intended to actually finish this run here now in this part. However, I realized it would be a very long video if I tried to do that, so I'm going to be cutting this into 3 parts and we'll finish on the next one. And with that, thank you all so much for your support, and I will most definitely catch you all on the next and the last part of the Mono Ice Intense run. Peace.